Yo, what's up, guys? We're here at SALT Conference right now. I'm here with the one and only Brad Bramer, and that's how you say it, Bramer, right?
Bramer, German.
Oh, yes, of
Mhm.
course. I'm a shepherd.
Is that also
I think it's European,
Scandinavian?
maybe of European descent.
Somewhere up there in the
My
Norwegian
grandfather
area?
was a missionary, and then his dad was from somewhere, so we just figured that out.
My granddad was a home builder.
Nice, that's awesome.
In
And look
case
at you, the house that granddad built. Like you're reaping the benefits of these homes. He's like, yeah, my dad built the entire United States. I'm like, cool. My granddad was in Africa flying airplanes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're on
But
the intro.
yeah, this is still the intro. But hey, we just wanted to jump on here and have a quick conversation and talk a little bit of tech. Brad, so share them a little bit about like just the creative, like the creative lane that we're in production and kind of the thread that we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So, observation. People expect today to get not just like broadcast standard type stuff, but people want performance type content in a live environment. And so 10 years ago, cameras weren't moving. They were on tripods. The idea of having people running around stage with musicians or capturing a live audience at a church congregational level was like unheard of. And so people expect people in production nowadays to be able to produce a post project in a live setting.
Right.
And so, you know, I've loved making music videos for my entire life. And I remember that planning process used to be like 3-4 weeks, sometimes months. On the front end, you capture it, you dump cards, you do all this stuff, and then, you know, you work another, 2 months on editing. Well, people expect that now 3 times a week.
Right.
1 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday morning.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
And that requires a different skill set.
It requires a whole different mindset when it comes to like production and tech and creativity. And I think, being at SALT, there's a lot of creatives who are here.
Yep.
And I think a lot of production people think and look at themselves and they're like, I'm a tech, I'm not a creative, or, oh man, we got to work with the creatives. And it's almost like this separation of like, we're the executors and those are the visionaries. But there's got to, like, I think God has gifted each and every single one of us in a very unique way. And I think creativity, whether it's small, big, medium, whatever, I think creativity is a muscle that we have to like exercise and train sometimes.
Well, creative field and production field are now, I mean, they're overlapping.
Right.
So it's
right.
You can't have one without the other at this point.
Right. Exactly.
Camera lens. I mean, the production environment is moving to a spot to only support creative output.
Correct. Like, how fast can I get this video to my creatives to be edited? How fast can I turn this piece of content around? My pastor just preached a sermon. We just did an e-group series. Like, how fast can we get that turned around? We got to get it out to the people. We got to get it in people's hands. Like the delivery process is, much different.
And now most people's live experiences are their primary source of content.
Right.
For their community, for their church, for their whatever else. And so the pressure to create live has never been more.
Right. So how do you've done it, you've started to merge that very, very well. Elevation, for those of you who don't know, I'm at Elevation Church. Brad is at Southeast Christian in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. And you guys have how many campuses?
16.
16 campuses and have been a church for
62 years.
62 years. And it was crazy. I didn't even know about Southeast Christian until some of my friends actually moved to Kentucky and they started leading worship and they were on the worship team over there. And then I saw you on social media and I was like, oh shoot, this is the same church. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. And so, for me, the power of social media has been, getting able to build some of these relationships and make connections with people at churches and in places that I wouldn't normally look at or find or see.
Yeah.
But speaking on the whole like creative and production overlap now, how do you build a team, or how are you building a team of people who think and can operate and can technically do both the production execution but also have the creative bandwidth to think at a high level?
I mean, practically speaking, people have to share the same rooms and be in the same conversations. And so if we're our production team actually yesterday was helping out on our Christmas commercial that our creative team was shooting. And so if you get your live video director engaged in actual post projects
Mm-hmm.
and you get your creative team who usually only does post projects in your live environments,
Hmm.
all of a sudden everyone starts understanding one another's workflows, preferences, body language,
Right.
actual language,
Right.
terminology, and you start actually creating a lot more consistently,
Yeah.
both on run and gun shoots and in
Yeah.
live environments.
Yeah. I grew up in the production world, and so the first time I heard the term gaffer, I was like, "What?"
Like you gaff tape.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh," but that's like in the creative space. That's somebody, So you talked a little bit about language. Like the language piece is so important because yeah, when you're on a professional studio set,
Yep.
that is the language that people use is much different than you're going to use in a live production environment.
Yep.
And so
A producer for a film shoot is very different than a producer who's running a service.
yes,
But they accomplish the same values.
right,
And that's why I think if you can figure out what are the common values that we're going for in the cinema look and what are the common values we're going for in the cinematic broadcast look,
right,
how can we overlap them as much as possible
yeah,
during the week and on the weekend?
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the traditional media, like you were talking about a little bit, is like, traditional media has always been one way for so long. And now it feels like, the output of content. Like we're on social media a lot. A lot of our sermon clips are the main things that blow
Yep.
up on socials. Like I'll find out about pastors and churches because of a clip that goes viral. Like, there's a
Yep.
guy the other day that was preaching on, he's like, I don't care how much you can speak in tongues, but you're mean. And I was just like, dang, that is a word. But like that,
Yeah.
I don't know how many people were on that live stream. I don't know how many people attend that church, but that clip went crazy on and got millions, I think it got millions of views.
Yeah.
But to me, that's like, oh my gosh, now the shift of live production and creativity, there has to be a very specific marriage there to know that, like, okay, reaching people with the gospel isn't just like church on Sunday is important because there's a value there of gathering of the gathering of the saints, but then also like the creative process and the output of the content that we're making also needs to have a connection too. So
I mean, there used to be ministries that were dedicated to having film studios, and the purpose of their ministry was to be, broadcast
Right.
on, live TV on Sunday mornings or, Tuesday afternoons. And now technology has gotten to the point where every church can do that.
Right.
And
It's like every auditorium is a live broadcast.
it's
Like is a studio.
it's a film studio.
Yeah, it is a studio.
And you can view that as, icky
right.
or cynical.
Right.
Or you can look at that as we've never been able to spread gospel content
Right. Faster, Yeah.
quicker, and in a more diverse. Because listen, I mean,
Yeah.
everyone has preferences, and some people speak with energy, and some people, just read their manuscript.
Yeah.
And everyone has a style. Some are very captivating in their language or their descriptors, and some are very exegetical in their approach.
Right. Right.
Like that used to be incredibly hard to find,
Right.
to motivate, to inspire, to
Yeah.
equip, to teach, or to spur people on. And now
Yeah.
all that stuff, I mean, you can hear
Yeah.
35 different teaching styles
Right.
through content. Content isn't church, though,
Right.
which is important to remember, to your
Ooh.
point.
Bro, just getting clips out here. Content isn't church. Say that louder for the people in the back.
Content is not church.
Content is not
You know,
church.
we captured a live album last week.
Yeah.
And one of the things we talked about is that we're capturing ministry, we're not capturing content.
Great.
Because I remember
Language.
I remember, language is important.
Yeah.
And it produces culture.
Dude,
but
it shapes and forms everything that you do. 100%.
I still will sit on my couch with my kid and we'll
Yeah.
watch worship videos.
Yeah.
Some at Elevation.
Yeah.
Some at Bethel. Some at, Cross that are just intimate in someone's barn or old
Yeah.
house or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll get moved to tears because of the work that God's doing through that piece of ministry that was
Right.
captured.
Right.
It's not content.
Dude, that
Content's
language.
information.
Yeah.
Ministry is stuff that God is, sowing on the front end, in the middle of, and, after it's on a card.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to remember.
Absolutely. And I think you can get that the language is so important because I think the word content creation, influencers,
Yep.
people now, it has a very negative connotation. And I think
Yep.
even what we do, like you see us on social media and you see us posting videos, we have different styles even of what we do, but it's in the same vein of production. But I think that like the term of like gaining a following and an influence has always been kind of this weird like taboo. Like influencers aren't good
Yeah.
kind of people that you
Well, then here,
wanna be around.
Then I'll ask you the question
Yeah.
that I'm sure everyone is asking about you anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is, why does Shep make content?
Why? It's a great question. It's a great question. I ask myself that every day.
But for real, what's your,
Yes.
when you started this, a year ago?
Yeah, less than a year. December really was.
So when you said, hey, I'm going to double down and I'm going to make stuff from my church for other people in church work, what was your heart behind it?
So for me, I have always, I've always been the young guy on whatever team that I'm on. And for me, it was, I know that I do not know.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I need to get better at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so I felt like one of the best ways to continue to get better at what I was doing and gain an understanding of the thing that I was doing is actually filming me kind of sharing about what I'm doing. And so that's honestly, that's the main vein of the content that I create, is kind of like keeps me humble of like, I have not arrived, I have not made it, but the content that I'm sharing, I'm hoping that it's helpful for somebody else. But then also at the same time, if I'm talking about it and sharing about it, I better know about it. And so it's honestly, it's kind of like a twofold thing where, one, I want to help other people learn and grow and get better at what they're doing. But also it's helping me stay humble and like, okay, how do I actually understand how this piece of gear is working, or this workflow, or this building, or this mindset that I'm trying to adopt? And so for me, like every time I kind of get like bogged down and like kind of like, oh, man, do I want to create? Like, no, I want to be disciplined and I want to create content that is helpful for other people. And gives insight. I know being at Elevation, like it really does kind of give you that, like giving an insight to people at a big organization like that, a big church like that. People are very intrigued with what we're doing and what we're, what's going on behind the scenes. And so, there's a little bit of a niche there where it's like, being in the position that I'm in, I'm able to provide a perspective that not everybody sees on a daily basis. But also, I think the big goal of it is not to also put things out in a way that is like flexing and being like, look at me, check this out, this is flashy. And so I try to be very intentional with that piece of like, and I tell people all the time, I tell churches, like, guys, you have what you need. Stop trying to be like Elevation, be who God has called you to be. But there are mindsets and things that we can address to, mindsets of excellence and how we're stewarding things and things like that we can talk about.
Well, and so much of the culture of production, is shifting. Number one, like I was a production, person. I was in student ministry. This is, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're on an island.
Yeah.
And that island doesn't exist through social media and other things like that in a development type way.
Right.
And so what's so interesting is I think about this when I'm posting or creating stuff, is sometimes watching a clip that you have or, Tyler or MXU or Philo or me or whoever else, like whoever's creating content for the production community, that is some people's only professional development that they're getting that month, that week, that whatever else.
Huge.
And for so many people who may be relationally challenged to grow in, connection or community or whatever else, relationally, that's the only professional development they may get that's not behind some sort of paywall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the average person, I grew up as a, middle school kid.
Yeah.
Volunteering.
Yeah.
I looked up to my, Jeff Jitley, who was our audio engineer at our church.
Right.
And I wanted to be like him. I wanted to do everything I could.
Yeah.
And now I think what's cool is there's 15 people now who you can look up to, be resourced by, go, is that relevant to me? Does that inspire me to get better? The other thing that I think is really cool about what you're doing is, you're breaking the mold of, you either have to be really good at what you do and a little grumpy or really joyful and not as qualified. Right. And it's really encouraging to see someone who cares just as much about culture and relationships as excellence. Right. So how do you personally, we'll take the team stuff out of it. How do you personally navigate like the spirit that you do it with the ministry mindset, but also with technical standards that you want to keep growing in?
For sure.
Pushing yourself in.
For sure. That is, I mean, first I start with, attitude. Like attitude is I have always been a high energy person from the.
That's true.
Just like asking my siblings.
Hey, being with Shep this week, that is not an understatement. That's
dude.
You have cocaine energy,
bro. I thrive around people, and I don't know why. Like, I just feel like it's the way, like, I catch myself coming. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today. We were together, and I had this like 5-minute monologue, and then the guy next to me just makes a joke, and I was like, ah, man, I just talked way too much. And it's like a check where it didn't hurt my feelings, but I'm like, ah, yeah, I do talk a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I just know that about me, and I know I have high energy,
Yeah.
and I've always had that. I feel like that's a gift from God, where God is like, for those of you who have ADHD or whatever, have been
Yeah.
diagnosed with stuff, like my mom would always tell me like, oh yeah, nah, like sweetie, like, you don't have ADHD, you don't got ADHD.
Edit that.
And so, it was always that thread of like, my parents were being like, oh, my boy Kyle, my mom, would kind of instill like, no, like you are who God has called you to be.
Yeah.
And so I know I have this energy. I know I bring a certain level of like, yo, what is this guy on?
Yeah.
But I use that because I'm like, I feel like God has specifically gifted me with that energy that is the thing that other people need.
Yep.
And I know that he's uniquely wired each of us, but I just feel like for me, that's kind of like the place that I start is like, okay, I know that I have something that other people need. And it can also be, a weapon to help, or it can be kind of a detriment if I'm not in control of who I am. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times of knowing things about myself like that is kind of where I can start when I'm starting to do certain things. But when you talk about like building a team and kind of, how do you navigate that dynamic? Like, I really try to care about people, and I think that that's the thing that I love that's the thing that I love is that, yes, I like being around people, but I also really try to be intentional about caring about them.
Yeah.
And I think that, I just know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not. Like, I can do the tech stuff. I don't love the tech. Like, I just don't love putting my head down and putting headphones on and working in a rack. I will and can and am good at that.
Yeah.
And I understand signal flow. I understand how, racks work and, all those different bits and pieces and taking apart a console, putting it back together. Like, it's just not my bread and butter. I like being around people. I like having conversations and I like, coaching and training and doing and working with people, because I think for me, starting in church at 12, I was the quietest. Like, you would not recognize who I am. If you met me at 12, you're like, dude, why is this kid so quiet? And I just always felt like I was just kind of like, just show up and serve. And I think just through relationships and people pulling things out of me over time, I gained confidence. I gained comfortability. I learned certain things, and I always had somebody who was pulling something out of me. And so now I want to be the person that's pulling potential and pulling things out of other people that they don't see in themselves. And so that ultimately is kind of where I'm like, that's what happened to me, and that's how I am where I am today. I want to do that for other people. Now, not that there's anything wrong with working in a rack or doing that, but I just don't feel like that's, operating sometimes in my strengths. And so I think that, that's where I go to, and that's where I start is, man, what am I good at? And how do I leverage the thing that I'm good at to build a team and to build a culture and to build something that, and then on top of that, I'm like, I work at Elevation. And so the execution piece of what we do, I mean, yeah, it's high level, and it's for me, it's a lot less pressure nowadays because I feel like I've just been operating under this pressure since I was 12.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think I have like a broken pressure gauge or something.
It's wide open.
Yeah. And so like, something crazy goes on Sunday. I go into like, all right, I'm going into go mode. I'm locking in. We had a KVM system die on a Sunday morning after a run through a couple months ago, KVM manager. And so, I walk in the morning, the manager's not responding. I'm like, oh, okay, well, hopefully this thing holds on. And then all of a sudden, after run through, every display, all of our CGs, Resolume, graphics, lyrics, all the display, they just go black.
You don't need this.
And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh, bro, just decided to clock out early today. He said he was only doing a half day before church started. And you just go into you just go into work mode. And my boss was like, dude, you operate like a duck in moments like that. I was like, is that a good thing?
I've heard this.
Dude, the
smooth
duck analogy,
on top, just
just
going underneath.
The feet are just moving. And I was like, well, good. That's the level of execution that I want to have. And so I think for me, like, I have to know, I have had to learn because of my personality and who I am. I have had to learn when to wear the right hat.
Yep.
When am I being the people person versus when is it time to lock in and execute?
Good.
And so that for me, learning that about myself very quickly on and early on in life, I think it served me very well because now I'm able to, yeah, when it's time to go into production mode, lock in. We're making sure we're executing things on time. And because of the people personality factor of it, if somebody makes a mistake on the team, I want to encourage them and like, hey, that's,
Yeah.
this is how we do it this way. I try to say something whenever something goes wrong, but also try not to be the guy that's like bashing people over the head or, like you freaking suck because you did this or did that. Like, it's just unproductive in my opinion. I'm like, there's better ways. Because me personally, I wasn't really ever bashed over the head for production misses. I
Yeah.
was always kind of coached along the way of like, okay, here's how you could do this better. Here's how you could do this differently. Let's try it this way. And I think because of some of the trust that people gave me, I then took that and was like, okay, how can I make this the best that it possibly can be? And then that also opened myself up to just asking for feedback and
Yeah.
asking people like, hey, what did you think about that? What did you think about this? How can we do this differently? Was that the absolute best it could be? And that's where like the execution piece kind of comes in of like, how do you, how do you balance the relational side with the execution
Yeah.
side? And so that's kind of where we're at in elevation. Obviously we execute at a high level and we're consistently pushing for great experiences and experiences
Yeah.
for people to encounter Jesus in fresh and new ways. So we're always coming up with ideas, implementing ideas, and I just like sharing those ideas. I'm
Yeah.
like, my boss comes up with great ideas, my coworkers come up with great ideas, and I'm just like, hey, here's what this guy's doing, here's this guy's doing. Well, here's a small thing I did.
Yeah.
But I just think that sharing some of those insights can really help other people and inspire other people to like look at what they have and be like, okay, like I don't need to spend millions of dollars on all this stuff, but what do I have?
Yeah.
How can I leverage it? And then who do I have? Because I think we look at the dollar signs
Yeah.
and we don't look at the people sometimes,
Yeah.
So
Well, and you never want to be a organization or a church that has all the great gear but isn't actually doing anything with it.
right,
You always want to be the church that
right,
people walk in and go, "Oh dang,
yeah,
you guys are doing that with
yeah,
that."
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're maximizing your people, your
100%,
relationships, the capacity of your gear,
yeah,
the output of it, and you're using when you're stewarding money and resources and
right,
tithe dollars,
right,
you want to be riding that ceiling
yeah,
constantly,
yeah,
gear, people, resources,
right,
everything else. Now that you've been here and we've gone through 4 sessions, I think we have one more in like
hmm
a couple minutes. Why would you encourage production people to come to Salt?
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, you
I'm gonna
know,
take another bite of my turkey
yeah, get your
sandwich.
get your sandwich. I was riffing the whole time, and you didn't even. I was giving you
Well,
so much
you were given so
opportunity.
much. I didn't want to break into your flow.
No,
We
dude,
had the eye
we
contact,
did
the
have eye
smiles. That
contact.
that's
Mm.
good. I was giving you all the front row energy.
The
It was
front
good.
row energy. That's probably the problem is whenever I'm talking, people give me front row energy, so I just keep talking. I'm like, okay, I guess you like what I'm saying, so I'm keeping it. Um, yeah, salt as okay, I mean, I'm a relationship guy. I mean, I would encourage you to get out of your church and go be a part of something to build relationships.
Yep.
Put yourself out there. Something like this, even if it's church creatives, yeah, like you said, we're a little bit of the minority of like production guys
Hmm.
who show up here. But I've met a lot of people who are in the creative space who are also look at our stuff and are like, dude, Shep, thanks so much for your content. Thanks for all the things you
Yep.
do. So, but ultimately, I think it's like you got to get out of your church. You got to get out of your state. You got to get out of your city
Yep.
and get a different perspective. And I think that is, one of the best, salt is one of the best places for that. It's just to get a different perspective because then that helps you go back to where you came from and have a new, fresh revelation of what am I doing? How are we doing it? Who am I doing it with?
Yep.
And then also like the practical resources. Like there's plenty of vendors here to build relationships with. There's plenty of other churches here
Yeah.
to build relationships. So I would say like if you're going, if you're planning for your next year budget, plan to get to a conference like Salt where you can build relationships and make connections.
It's good. It's good.
Because how often for you, like how often do you, you know, you just like it happens to all of us where you kind of get into a discouraged mode or you kind of get
Mm.
into like a, you know, like how often do you find yourself leveraging relationships or leveraging people that you've built relationships with outside of your organization, outside of your church to help you kind of have a different perspective and help you be focused on what you do?
Yeah. Honestly, I have a couple good friends who don't work in church work that are really helpful.
Right.
this has been the first calendar year that I've actually invested in some external relationships,
Great.
and it has been far more encouraging than anything else.
Yeah.
Um, and even when it is affirming, what I'm feeling may be affirmed,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still encouraged through it
Great.
because I know I'm not alone.
Great.
People have gotten through it.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm feeling that the circumstances
Mm-hmm.
around me are making me stuck,
Mm-hmm.
when often it may be a habit that I'm doing that I have, my blinders up
Hmm.
and I'm not self-aware of something. And so actually having professional, relationships
Yeah.
from other people doing what I'm doing
Yeah.
in the game that we're all, pursuing, which
Yeah.
is building for God's kingdom to
Yeah.
advance. Yeah, it's been a big deal this
Yeah.
year.
The word professional scares me sometimes because I think that I don't ever feel like I am a professional.
It's because we're still kids.
Yeah, but like, yeah, when do you? Where's the when do I graduate?
I think if you
like,
call yourself if you call yourself a professional, there's a good chance you may not be a professional.
oh, so it's like a counter.
I think
it's
it's
reverse psychology.
Yeah. So
if you think you're a professional, just check twice because
follow Shep, you'll learn you're not.
you'll learn that you're not. Yeah, I mean, dude, at the end of okay, the word professional literally means that you do something for a profession, correct?
You get paid to do it, but
so technically, if you work for a church, you are a professional.
you are a professional person,
yeah.
and you do it. But I think the idea, the motor to grow,
right,
and to not assume that you've plateaued,
right,
is I think really the spirit and the culture that
yeah,
the church needs a little bit more of.
Yeah.
And not people who are like, this is what I can do, and this is how we've done it, and I'm unwilling to do anything else. In order for the gospel to keep moving, you got to innovate, you got to rethink, you got to reevaluate, and methods are going to change every, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
And finally, the world around us has been able to adapt to how we can communicate the gospel in a ton of different ways.
Right.
And to creatively, create that, and also to technically support that and create it is a really cool thing.
Yeah. What do you think the next evolution of church is going to look like?
I think that there's going to be probably a little bit. This is a little doom and gloom, but
oh my gosh! All right, let's go. Doom and gloom. Send it.
I think that churches are going to have to make a decision if you're going to keep pursuing technology as a means or organic, grassroots, local engagement as a means. And I don't mean that to overly, polarize them, but I see so many medium to small size churches, I think, trying to be big churches. Right. And they're burning people out trying to produce a TV show. Right. And you're missing, the 400 people that God's put in your church.
Huge.
Likewise, I think I see some influential churches that those influential churches will come and go, but they have a national audience or a regional impact, and other churches are looking to them for guidance, leadership, and how do we navigate through the times we're in. Right. I see some of those churches neglecting the influence that God has marked them with.
Huge.
And I think at some point everyone needs to prayerfully with, their local leadership and their church really go, what kind of church are we going to be?
Right.
And I think those paths, as much as they are congruent in terms of impact and influence and the kingdom of God, I think on the surface level where we're usually looking at things, they'll feel a little bit different as we keep growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my take. I could be wrong, though. I'm happy to be wrong.
No, I mean, it's your take. You can't be wrong if it's your opinion.
This is my opinion that I'm wrong about.
Just preface it. Like, you can't be wrong about an opinion that you already say that you're wrong about. So you can't. It's
something I said is bound to be true.
Yeah, there you go. Great.
I'm either wrong or this is what happens.
I'm either wrong or I'm wrong.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have friends that are in medium-sized churches who I think have so much anxiety trying to
be someone they're not.
Well, there's just as much, if not far more, pressure and stress at smaller churches than there are larger. Right. The difference is smaller churches are not resourced. Right. To execute what is expected of them.
Correct.
And I think that's really troubling. To how you care for people and how you treat people and how you lead them.
I think my next iteration, just for me, like where I see myself going, I think it would be really fun. I think it would be so fun to launch a church from the ground up,
Hmm.
like not elevation, not any, like, but just like go be a part of a church that's like launching.
I thought you were saying you wanted to plant a church.
No, that's not my announcement video. No, brother. Yeah, maybe in a couple years,
Yeah.
maybe 10, 15, 20, 30. But no, like to be a part of a church from a production side,
Yeah.
to be a part of a church that launches, I feel like would be so beneficial. Having been at Elevation, I've launched campuses of Elevation. I've been at campuses of 100 people out of Elevation to 800, growing it to 800.
Yeah.
And I've launched campuses out of campuses
Hmm.
in cities. And now I've been at Broadcast, which is, a whole other thing in and
Yeah.
of itself. But I think the thing that would just like really help me, like challenge me a little bit, is just like, man, what would I do if I launched a church, or was a part of a church launch where you don't have this crazy budget, you don't have these things, but you have all this skill and kind of
Yep.
experience. And I just think that would be something fun that I would just like enjoy.
Well, I think it would force you, with the experience and some of the back end
Yeah.
like knowledge, it would force you to make the best ministry decision for
Right.
what you all are doing and how you decide to do it.
Right.
And that's what I think more churches could pay attention to right now. Is
Right.
think about how God has uniquely placed your church.
Right.
My brother's a church planner in California,
Yeah.
and he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder, but they're not growing through experience.
Mm-hmm.
They're growing through felt needs,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Relationships,
Mhm.
all the things that the church has grown for
Right. Right.
thousands of years.
Right. 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 Absolutely.
And one is not necessarily more faithful or more right,
Right.
but the conviction that they have had is like,
Yeah.
here's what we're going to do, how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And we're going to do that as long as God gives us peace,
Yeah.
that this is what faithfulness,
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, just practically to the small churches, to the media, you say, I don't like using a size quantification for church. This thing that's so annoying.
But
There's
it's
like,
what people do.
but there's also there's always a
I totally get it.
connotation.
I totally get it.
But two churches it's two churches in general. There's a lot of them who don't have technicians or production leaders and production minded people like us. Or maybe you have somebody starting out who's just, maybe they're a volunteer, maybe they're brand new to the technical side of things. What do you say to someone practically? You need to be doing X, Y, and Z to grow in your skill set, to grow in your understanding, and to grow in your leadership. What are some of those very practical things that you would say to somebody in their early
To like
tenure?
grow on the technical end,
Yeah.
if you want to grow.
Yeah.
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 I'd say get good at a couple things and do them and grow to be really good at those couple things.
Yeah.
And so
So lighting, for example. Or
know pro presenter
yeah.
really well.
Great.
Like start with one thing.
Yeah.
And then get not novice at 9 things.
Right.
Get distinguished.
Right.
Is this a grading scale in high school? Like
Distinguished.
novice, apprentice, and then
I think you're talking about like Skyrim or something like that. That was like a leveling system.
I underperformed in school, so I can't remember the upper echelon.
I just
of
know it
those
was like A,
things.
B, C, or D, or F.
Yeah.
We skipped E. You don't get an E on things; you get an F. I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
there's only one. There's only one vowel allowed in the grading
A, B, C,
system.
D, F.
But like instead of being mediocre or below average at
Right.
9 things,
Mm.
get really good at 3 and build your system
Great,
around your strengths.
great.
Build a predictable worship, service,
Mm-hmm.
support a worship service
Mm-hmm.
around your strengths versus, well, you got to run around with your chicken, with your head cut off because
Run around with your chicken.
you run.
Run around with your chicken head.
My work badge is me holding a chicken that I had.
No way.
Yeah, he's
What's
dead
the
now.
chicken's name?
We don't name our chickens. Do the raccoon and chicken.
Do you name the raccoon?
I fed a raccoon for my ham, but I don't name.
Oh.
I didn't name. Anyway, people run around. People run around stressed out, mostly because they're operating out of their areas of weakness.
Yeah.
Where if the ministry and the church would just simplify a little bit and go,
Right.
let's build around the strength of our people
Right.
and their competencies.
Yeah.
And the people actually have the time
Yeah.
and space to do repeatable things.
Yeah.
To get better.
Yeah.
And then you grow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what I tell people.
That's great.
Just
Lock in.
hold your chickens.
Hold your chicken.
and
Hold one chicken.
Hold one chicken and get good at a few
Feed your
things.
chicken.
Do not cut its head off.
Do not cut your chicken's head off.
Be a
Feed it.
duck.
And eat the chicken's eggs.
it's acceptable.
If you kill the chicken, you can only eat the meat one time. If you keep the chicken, you can eat the eggs forever.
And this has been our episode of
Thank you guys
Tax
so
the
much.
Church.
Thanks so much for coming to episode 1 of Tax the Church. Dude, that is so funny. Great. Well, that was a lot. That was great. I think I have one more question I want to ask. It was oh yeah, I wanted to ask you real quick. What's your end goal with content? You started this year. You've seen some traction on it on Instagram. What's kind of like what's your continued inspiration, or you just what's the continued inspiration or direction that you're wanting to take your content to?
So I started to recruit because we had some job openings.
Great.
And I wanted to celebrate the people on my team.
Great.
And I still hope to do those things. So I long to lead a team and be a part of a team that the people around me are proud enough of their work to put it out there for other people to be inspired and encouraged by.
Yeah.
And so what I would say the goal of my content is to model to people that, you're further along than you probably give yourself credit for. And, you will be an encouragement to someone. Yeah. And it's not the person you think that you'll be. If I would give any recommendation to anybody, it's make content for where you were 3 years ago.
Right.
Do that. So goal with content for me is to simply celebrate, here's what's going on in the church. I hope it's helpful. Yeah. Here's what we do. Yeah. Maybe it's good. Yeah. Maybe it could be better. Yeah. And I've also really enjoyed the opportunities that it's created relationally. Right. Hanging out with my man Shep. Right. Because I make content. Yep. But also,
we wouldn't be here.
I know, honestly.
That's so weird. Honestly. What a weird thing. It's so cool.
But honestly, how you and Hannah and Derek have also invested in our team. Right. And I got to hang with some of the crew you brought. Yeah. Like, that's actual ministry. Right. That is on the other side of posting stuff. Right. And that's the stuff that really matters to me. 100%. Is equipping people, encouraging people, supporting people. Yeah. And creating an actual relationship, because the guard is shifting in the church space. Yep. And I do think social media has a really unique opportunity to unite a lot of those new voices and give them some leadership to inspire and equip the next generation. Absolutely.
I love that. And I think like the thing you said too is that the thing I'm getting is that there's a person behind the account that you follow. Yep. And that to me, like, social media is like, I have so many conversations with so many different people on there, but until I meet them in person and have a face-to-face or, some type of interaction, that is like where I'm like, dude, it is so great to put a face to a name or to like put a, to actually shake somebody's hand, get to hear their story. Where are you from? What part of what church are you a part of? Yep. And for me, for content that, sure, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, but also like, I'm a people guy and I really like to have conversations with the people and to learn people, but then also, you're right. Like I want to highlight the team and show you guys no one's perfect. I think that's the social media thing is like, nobody is perfect. Like stop trying to think you have to be perfect. No. You have to have it all together. Like, no, let me show you some real raw, just, maybe this is good. Maybe this is bad. Maybe we failed here. Maybe this is an idea, but that's the authenticity of that is, I think, the more authentic that we can be. Yep. And even conversations like this, that's what really draws people in to be like, oh, okay, cool. These guys are like just like me. Yep. These are just two regular dudes. They're not top of the whatever, but they're just real raw, down to earth. I think that's the motivation.
Yeah, we're the same people who are cleaning up XLRs that people left behind, or putting down mic stands, or sweeping the stage, right, or doing the normal thing like running the same console with the same volunteer team. Yeah. 70 times a year. Yeah. Like that's what we're doing. Yeah.
And we're not perfect.
We're not perfect, but also there's a lot of power and meaning in the small, often unforeseen work that people in production do.
Absolutely. So, beautiful.
Shout out to you all.
Yeah.
Also, I love this greenery.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Nothing says production
like greenery.
Like this set.
Yeah, dude, this is the most unproduction set ever. And we're just over here ripping we were literally like, hey, Brad, you want to go sit on the set and just chat? And he's like, yeah, what are we talking about? I'm like, I don't know. Let's go talk. And so the past 45 minutes has been, I think we just ripped the first 30 to 45 minute podcast. That was beautiful.
Well, there you go. Every Monday. Stay tuned.
Every Monday. Wow, that's a commitment, but let's do it. Welcome back to Tax the Church on a Monday. Just in yesterday's Sunday service.
Yeah, hey, for real, we should do this again.
No, 100%.
All right.
And we should bring more people on so that way we can start to. I feel like our dynamic would be. I'm like this, like, well, I have the personality of like a young little like energetic ball of energy, Energizer Bunny, and then I feel like you're like the wisdom and like just the.
I'm just the guy with the chicken, man.
You're the guy. I'm the chicken. That's like, and you're the guy. You're petting the chicken.
That's what I have 25 chickens. That's what you do. You pet them.
You do to calm them down.
And their heads are so small. You can it's just like it's a small tip of the head.
Brad's the chicken
caress.
tamer, and I'm the chicken. I don't know if I like that analogy. I don't think I like that at all.
Anyways, yeah, we got a good thing going.
Great. Let's do it.
All right.
Bye, guys. Beautiful.
I'm eating my turkey sandwich now.
Yeah, you just spent the past 45 minutes staring at the turkey sandwich. That was great, dude.
That was fun.
I feel like there's like you could just like sit there and chat for like ever.
I legit do think that like I'm gonna hit
Gonna hit the stop. The whole time we weren't recording. You want me to hit the record button?
Yeah, go for it.